People find their soulmates at different ages. Some meet theirs in their 20s, some in their 30s, some spend their whole lives searching and never find them. But Kings and Clara found each other before they even understood what love was. They grew up together, dreamed together, and everyone believed nothing in this world could ever separate them. Until one decision changed everything. Kings and Clara belonged to each other's lives from the very beginning. Their parents had been close friends for many years. They weren't wealthy, but they lived comfortably, surrounded by love, respect, and family values. Because the two families spent so much time together, Kings and Clara practically grew up under the same roof. Before they could even pronounce each other's names properly, they were already inseparable. As they grew older, nothing changed. If anything, they became even closer. The entire neighborhood knew them. Teachers knew them. Church members knew them. If you saw Clara, Kings was never far away. If you saw Kings, Clara was probably right beside him. It wasn't because they had to be together. It was because they genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Kings had made himself Clara's silent protector. No one asked him to. He simply chose to. Whenever another child tried to make Clara cry, Kings was always the first to stand in front of her. Whenever she became afraid, his words gave her courage. Whenever she celebrated, he celebrated even louder. Without realizing it, he had already made a promise to himself. As long as I'm alive, no one will ever hurt Clara. People around them couldn't help but smile. Whenever they saw the two together, they would laugh and say, "Leave them alone. They are already husband and wife in the future." The children would blush, the adults would laugh, but deep inside, both families secretly wished those words would one day become reality. As the years passed, friendship quietly transformed into something much deeper. Neither Kings nor Clara ever needed to say it. Everyone could already see it in the way they looked at each other. After years of studying, the day they had both prayed for finally arrived: graduation. Their parents couldn't stop smiling. Pictures were taken, prayers were said, tears of joy filled the room. It felt like the beginning of a beautiful future. Kings imagined building a life with Clara. Clara smiled whenever she looked at him. Everything seemed perfect, but sometimes the biggest storms arrive when the sky looks the clearest. Weeks after graduation, something quietly changed. Clara would often stand outside in the evenings, watching airplanes disappear into the clouds. Her eyes carried dreams that no one else could see. She wasn't unhappy. She wasn't tired of Kings. She simply felt there was a bigger world waiting beyond the town she had always known. She wanted new experiences, new people, new opportunities. She wanted to discover who she could become, even if that journey meant leaving behind everything familiar. She didn't know it then, but sometimes the greatest mistake isn't chasing your dreams. It's believing that the people who truly love you will always be waiting when you decide to return. Not every restless heart is ungrateful. Sometimes people simply wonder if there's more waiting for them beyond the life they've always known. That was Clara's battle. She loved Kings. She loved her family. She loved the town that raised her. But every night, she imagined herself in a different country, walking unfamiliar streets, meeting new people, building a career on her own. To her, it wasn't about running away from love. It was about proving to herself that she could stand on her own. Little did she know, the greatest strength she already had was the love she was slowly taking for granted. One quiet evening, Clara finally gathered the courage to tell Kings what had been living inside her heart. They sat under the old tree where they had shared countless childhood memories. For the first time, neither of them knew what to say. Clara took a deep breath. The smile disappeared from his face. In that moment, it felt as if someone had quietly pulled the ground from beneath his feet. He had imagined many things about their future, but never a future without Clara beside him. "Then I'll come with you. We'll start a new life together." Clara gently shook her head. Kings looked away. Those words hurt more than she realized. Sometimes, people don't cry because they stopped loving you. They cry because they realize love alone cannot stop someone from leaving. King searched Clara's eyes. He wasn't angry. He was terrified. Terrified that distance would change everything. Terrified that someone else would meet the woman he had planned to spend forever with. But most of all, he was terrified of losing his best friend. Clara couldn't answer. She simply looked down. For the first time since they were children, silence spoke louder than words. While Kings was struggling to understand Clara's decision, someone else was quietly celebrating it. Her name was Gina. She had been Clara's friend for years, always smiling, always supportive, always pretending to wish them well, but hidden behind every smile was a secret she had buried for a very long time. Gina had loved Kings in silence. Every laugh he shared with Clara felt like a knife in her heart. She never stood a chance, not because she wasn't beautiful, but because Kings had only ever seen one woman. Those words sounded like encouragement, but they were carefully wrapped in selfishness. Gina wasn't helping Clara find her future. News of Clara's decision spread quickly through both families. Neither house was filled with shouting, only heavy silence, because everyone understood one painful truth. Some mistakes cannot be undone with apologies. That evening, both families gathered. Clara's father looked at her with disappointment, not because she wanted to travel, but because she was ready to walk away from a love that had stood beside her since childhood. Her mother held her hand gently. Love doesn't always fight loudly. Sometimes, love simply stands there, hoping the person it loves will change their mind. After that family meeting, King stopped trying to convince Clara to stay, not because he had given up on her, but because he knew love could never be forced. If Clara truly believed leaving was the only way to discover herself, then he would never become the chain that held her back. Still, every smile he forced onto his face hit a heart that was quietly breaking. The days passed faster than anyone wanted. Suitcases were packed, documents were arranged, phone calls were made, and before anyone realized it, the day Clara had been waiting for finally arrived. The morning felt unusually quiet. Even the laughter that once filled both homes had disappeared. Everyone was trying to be strong for Clara, but deep inside, every goodbye felt heavier than the last. Kings carried her luggage without saying much. He wished the road to the airport would never end. Every kilometer brought them closer to a goodbye he wasn't ready to say. At the airport, everyone hugs Clara. Her mother wipes away tears, her father blesses her. King stands a few steps away, unable to move, unable to speak. Sometimes, the deepest pain leaves a person speechless. Kings had imagined saying 100 different things, but standing before Clara, none of those words could leave his lips. Clara walks toward him. She smiles, trying to lighten the moment. She believed those words. She truly did. She had no idea that life was about to test every ounce of that confidence. She boards the plane. Kings watches until it disappears. As the plane vanished into the clouds, Kings whispered the words he couldn't say aloud. "I'll wait for you, no matter how long it takes." Everything felt exciting at first. New streets, new buildings, new faces. Everything looked exactly like the dream Clara had carried in her heart for years. For the first few weeks, she couldn't stop taking pictures. Every place looked beautiful. Every experience felt like freedom. She called home often, telling everyone how wonderful everything was. She wanted them to believe she had made the right decision, and maybe she also wanted to convince herself. It didn't take long before Clara met new people. They laughed with her, invited her out, made her feel like she finally belonged. She believed she had found genuine friendship. But appearances can be dangerously convincing. Not everyone who welcomes you into their circle wants the best for you. Some people only stay close as long as they can benefit from your kindness. Whenever someone needed help, Clara never hesitated. She paid bills, bought gifts, covered expenses. She believed kindness always came back. She didn't notice that every friendship she was building revolved around what she could give, not who she truly was. Thousands of miles away, life also moved on for Kings. He buried himself in work. He attended meetings, submitted proposals, worked late into the night. He was determined to become the man he had always dreamed of being. But no matter how busy life became, one habit never changed. Before sleeping each night, he checked on Clara. Sometimes through a phone call, sometimes through her social media, sometimes by quietly asking mutual friends how she was doing. He never wanted her to know, not because he wanted to control her, but because loving someone had become as natural as breathing. The excitement of arriving eventually faded, and reality quietly took its place. Finding a good job wasn't as easy as she had imagined. Every interview ended with another polite rejection. Her savings began to disappear little by little, and the friends who had welcomed her so warmly always seemed to need something. One needed money, another needed a place to stay. Someone else always wanted a favor. Clara gave freely because that was who she had always been. She believed kindness created lasting friendships. She didn't realize that some people only stay close to the hand that keeps giving. Back home, Kings refused to let heartbreak define his future. Instead of drowning in sadness, he buried himself in work. While others slept, he was studying. While others complained, he was building. One opportunity led to another. Small contracts became bigger ones. Bigger contracts opened doors no one thought possible. His discipline, honesty, and determination slowly began changing his life. Sometimes he would quietly check her social media before going to bed. Sometimes he would ask mutual friends how she was doing without letting her know. Sometimes he would simply stare at an old photograph of them as children and smile to himself. Distance had separated their bodies, but it had failed to separate his heart from hers. One evening, one of Clara's new friends invited her to a small gathering. They laughed together, ate together, and for a moment, she forgot every struggle she had been facing. As the night grew darker, people began leaving one after another until only Clara and a young man she had recently met remained behind. He offered to drive her home. It sounded harmless. After all, they had become friends. But not everyone who calls you a friend deserves your trust. Halfway through the journey, the atmosphere changed. His smile disappeared. His words became uncomfortable. When Clara asked him to stop the car, he ignored her. Fear slowly crept into her heart. For the first time since arriving in that country, she realized just how alone she truly was. Her hands trembled. Her breathing became heavy. She reached for the door, but it was locked. She shouted, but there was no one to hear her. In that terrifying moment, only one thought crossed her mind. Kings was right. But what Clara didn't know was that someone had never truly stopped watching over her. Unknown to Clara, Kings had traveled to the same country earlier that week to finalize one of the biggest business deals of his career. He never told Clara because he wanted to respect the distance she had asked for. That same evening, a Nigerian family friend who occasionally checked on Clara noticed her getting into a stranger's car. Something didn't feel right. He immediately called Kings. "Kings, I don't want to scare you, but Clara just left with a man I've never seen before. I tried calling her, but she's not answering." Kings didn't wait for another word. He rushed out immediately. For some reason, his heart refused to stay calm. Back inside the car, Clara begged the man to stop. He refused. She tried opening the door, but the child lock had already been switched on. Tears filled her eyes. She shouted for help, but the lonely road swallowed her voice. The man finally pulled over beside an unfinished building. Clara's hands shook as he reached for her. Just then, another vehicle sped into the area. Its headlights lit up the darkness. The man turned in surprise. A black SUV stopped abruptly. The driver's door flew open. King stepped out. Without saying a word, he walked straight toward the car. The frightened man immediately realized he had attracted attention. He pushed Clara away, jumped into his car, and sped off before anyone else could arrive. Clara stumbled out of the car, shaking uncontrollably. The moment she saw Kings, every emotion she had been holding back came pouring out. She burst into tears. For several seconds, Clara couldn't say a word. She stood there trembling, trying to process everything that had just happened. King slowly walked toward her and gently placed his jacket over her shoulders. He looked into her eyes, searching for any sign that she had been hurt. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Clara nodded, but tears continued to roll down her cheeks. She wanted to be strong, but the fear she had just experienced had broken every wall she had built around her heart. Kings opened the passenger door of his car and quietly said, "Let me take you home." This time, Clara didn't argue. She simply got into the car. The journey back was painfully quiet. Neither of them knew where to begin. The silence between them carried years of love, disappointment, and unanswered questions. As they approached Clara's apartment, she finally gathered the courage to speak. "Thank you. How did you know where I was?" she said. As they stood outside her apartment, Clara looked at Kings with mixed emotions. She was grateful he had saved her, but another part of her still wanted the freedom she had fought so hard for. "Kings, I appreciate what you did tonight. I'll never forget it, but please, stop worrying about me all the time. I need to learn how to face life by myself. I don't want you putting your life on hold because of me anymore." Kings remained quiet for a moment. "I've never put my life on hold, Clara. I just never stopped caring." King said. Those words lingered in the air. Clara wanted to respond, but nothing came out. King smiled faintly, wished her good night, and walked back to his car. He never asked her to stay. He never asked her to come home. He simply drove away. That night changed something in both of them. Clara became more careful about the people she trusted. She focused on work and stopped trying so hard to fit in. Kings returned home after completing his business trip. This time he made a decision. He would no longer chase Clara. If she ever came back, it would be because she truly wanted to. So he poured all his energy into building his future. Months turned into years. Small contracts became major investments. One successful business led to another, and before long, King's name was being mentioned among the country's biggest entrepreneurs. The young man who once walked Clara to school had become a billionaire. Yet, despite all his success, there was one achievement money could never buy: forgetting Clara. For the first few months, Clara believed she had finally found the life she had always dreamed of. Every morning she woke up believing that today would be the day everything changed. She kept telling herself that every struggle was only temporary, and that success would soon come knocking. But little by little, the people around her began to reveal who they truly were. The same friends who once couldn't stop calling her suddenly became too busy whenever she needed them. They remembered her whenever they wanted money, a favor, or someone to solve their problems, but whenever Clara needed encouragement, everyone seemed to disappear. It was the first time she began to understand that not everyone who laughs with you is genuinely happy for you. For the first time since leaving home, Clara found herself sitting alone in her apartment, wondering if the freedom she had fought so hard for was slowly becoming the loneliness she never expected. A few days later, one of her new friends invited her to another gathering. Clara hesitated for a moment. Something didn't feel right, but she didn't want to keep isolating herself. She convinced herself that maybe she was just overthinking everything. After all, these were the only people she knew in a country that still felt unfamiliar. As the evening went on, everyone laughed, played music, and shared stories. Clara slowly relaxed, believing her worries had been unnecessary. It wasn't long before everyone in town began talking about Kings. The young man who was once known only for his kindness had become one of the most successful businessmen in the country. His story inspired many, but for one person, it awakened an old desire. Gina had never stopped loving Kings. She believed this was finally her chance. Clara was thousands of miles away, chasing a dream that seemed to have forgotten her. To Gina, the road was finally clear. She started visiting Kings more often, bringing food to his office, checking on him after work, and finding every excuse to spend time with him. Kings appreciated her kindness, but his heart remained untouched. He treated her with the same respect he showed everyone else, never realizing that every act of kindness gave Gina another reason. Far away from home, Clara kept fighting. She finally found a job, but it was nothing like the future she had imagined. She worked long hours just to pay rent and survive. The beautiful city she once admired now felt cold and unfamiliar. Every evening, she returned to an empty apartment where silence had become her closest companion. The laughter that once filled her days slowly disappeared. Even the friends she had trusted had almost vanished from her life. Some nights, she picked up her phone to call Kings, but pride always stopped her. She would stare at his number for a few seconds, then quietly put the phone down. She missed him, but she didn't know how to admit years had passed, but neither of them had truly moved on. Kings buried his feelings in work, while Clara buried hers in regret. They both smiled before the world, but when they were alone, their hearts told a different story. Sometimes Kings would stand on the balcony of his mansion and remember the little girl who used to run after him on their street. He wondered if she was eating well, if she was safe, if she was happy. Little did he know, Clara was asking herself the very same questions. One afternoon, after another successful business meeting, King sat quietly in his office. He realized something had to change. He couldn't spend the rest of his life waiting for someone who had chosen another path. For years, he had kept his promise to love Clara, but love also meant accepting reality. With a heavy heart, he made a decision that shocked both families. He was finally ready to get married. The news spread through the town like wildfire. Congratulations poured in from friends, relatives, and business associates. Wedding preparations began immediately. Everyone was excited, except one person. Kings gave only one instruction. Don't tell Clara. He didn't want to distract her from the life she had chosen. But some news, no matter how carefully it's hidden, always finds its way to the person it's meant to reach. Thousands of miles away, Clara was trying to get through another long day at work when her phone suddenly rang. It was an old friend from home. They exchanged a few pleasantries before the conversation took a turn she never expected. "Have you heard?" the voice asked. "Kings is getting married in a few days." For a moment, Clara froze. She thought it was a joke. Kings? Getting married? The same kings who had promised to love only her? The same kings who waited for years without complaining? She laughed nervously and said it couldn't be true. But when the wedding invitation was sent to her phone, her smile disappeared. Her hands began to shake, and tears slowly filled her eyes. It wasn't the invitation that broke her heart. It was the realization that while she was busy chasing a future, someone else had almost taken the place she abandoned. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She sat alone in the darkness, replaying every memory she had shared with Kings. The little boy who carried her school bag, the young man who defended her whenever she was in trouble, the man who begged her not to leave. For years, she had blamed him for being overprotective, but now she understood the truth. He wasn't trying to control her. He was simply afraid of losing the woman he loved. Regret has a cruel way of arriving after the damage has already been done. Clara cried until there were no more tears left. If only she could turn back time, she would never have walked away from the only place that truly felt like home. By sunrise, Clara had made her decision. She wasn't ready to lose Kings without a fight. She resigned from her job, packed the same suitcase she had brought years earlier, and booked the first flight home. As the plane lifted into the sky, Clara stared through the window with tears in her eyes. The same journey that once filled her heart with excitement was now filled with fear. She wasn't returning as the confident young woman who had left home to conquer the world. She was returning as a woman praying she hadn't lost the greatest gift God had ever given her. The moment Clara stepped out of the airport, memories came rushing back. Every road reminded her of Kings. Every familiar face reminded her of the life she had left behind. She rushed home, hoping someone would tell her the wedding had been canceled. Instead, she found both families busy preparing for the ceremony. The decorations, the music, the excitement, everything reminded her that time had refused to wait for her. She threw herself into her mother's arms and broke down in tears. "Mum, why didn't you stop him?" Her mother gently wiped away her tears. "We tried to stop you, Clara. We begged you to think carefully before leaving. Nobody took Kings away from you. You left him behind." Those words pierced Clara's heart more deeply than anything she had ever heard. The morning of the wedding arrived. Before the sun had fully risen, decorators were already putting the finishing touches on the beautiful venue. Guests would begin arriving in just a few hours. Clara couldn't waste another second. Without changing her clothes, she rushed to King's mansion. Her heart pounded with every step. She wasn't thinking about pride anymore. She wasn't thinking about embarrassment. She was only thinking about one thing. "I can't let another woman marry the man I've loved all my life." Clara stood outside King's mansion, breathing heavily. The same house she had dreamed of returning to now felt impossible to enter. She rushed toward the gate, but the gateman immediately stopped her. "I'm sorry, madam." "No one is allowed in without permission," Clara pleaded with him, but he refused. Time was running out. Guests would soon begin arriving, and the wedding she feared most would become a reality. With tears streaming down her face, she gathered all the strength she had left and shouted, "Kings, please, don't do this to me. Kings!" Her voice echoed through the compound. It was the cry of a woman who had finally realized the value of what she had lost. Inside the mansion, Kings was getting ready for the biggest day of his life. Family members moved around excitedly while final preparations continued. Then, through the noise, he heard a familiar voice. He froze. For a second, he wondered if his heart was playing tricks on him. Then he heard it again. "Kings!" Without hesitation, he walked to the balcony and looked down. There she was, Clara, tired, broken, crying. The woman he had prayed for every single day was standing at his gate. Kings asked the gateman to open the gate immediately. The moment Clara saw him, she ran toward him. Before Kings could say a word, Clara dropped to her knees. She didn't care who was watching. She didn't care about her pride anymore. The only thing that mattered was the man standing before her. Through uncontrollable tears, she begged him to forgive her. Kings, I'm sorry. I thought I was chasing a better life. I thought I needed to find myself, but all I did was lose the person who loved me the most. Please, don't marry someone else. Please don't make me live with this regret for the rest of my life. If you still have even a little love left for me, forgive me. Kings looked at Clara with tears in his own eyes. For years he had imagined this moment. He had imagined hearing those words. But now that they were finally here, they carried the weight of every lonely night he had endured. Kings reached into the pocket of his suit. Clara slowly looked up through her tears. Instead of taking out a handkerchief, he brought out a small velvet ring box. Before Clara could understand what was happening, King slowly went down on one knee. Clara couldn't believe what she was hearing. She stood there speechless as Kings handed her the wedding invitation. With trembling hands, she opened it. This time, she looked carefully. And there it was. The bride's name. Clara. She froze. All this time, she had believed Kings was marrying another woman. She never knew he had only been waiting for her to come home. The tears that had once been filled with regret suddenly became tears of overwhelming joy. Just then, both families stepped forward with smiles on their faces. They had witnessed everything from the moment Clara entered the mansion. Her mother laughed through happy tears. "Enough crying," she said. "Go and get ready. Your guests have been waiting long enough." Clara looked around in disbelief. The beautifully decorated venue, the flowers, the music, it had all been prepared for her. She smiled through tears, slipped the ring onto her finger, and threw her arms around King's. This time, she wasn't holding on out of fear of losing him. She was holding on because she finally understood that some dreams may take you around the world. But the greatest blessing can be the person who has loved you from the very beginning. And on that beautiful day, surrounded by the people who had always believed in them, Kings and Clara finally became husband and wife. Sometimes, life teaches us that the grass isn't greener on the other side. Sometimes, home is where your soulmate has been waiting all along. Before this beautiful story comes to an end, I have a question for you. Do you think Clara made the right decision by leaving to chase her dreams? Or should she have stayed with Kings from the beginning? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear your opinion. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next emotional story. You never know, the next one might be even more unforgettable.